ये रोज और शब का बेनूर हाल और बिखरे ख्यालों का बेनूर जाल। आओ उठा दे सारे पर्दे और गिरा दे सारे बुत। आओ उम्मीद के गीत गाए, गीत गाए, गीत गाए, गीत गाए, गीत गाए।
Oof. So, Mr. Hamad Alam, pretend you're 1995 and you put this cassette in your tape deck and you hear this message, and then the first thing that happens is your tape deck explodes. And then after that, your life is never the same. That's what was happening back then. Even though this is 1995 when Junoon obviously started in 1991, but this was the how would you describe it? What kind of point was that where everything just kind of blew up?
I think up to that point, my entire existence and who I thought I was, you're right. That's how you would describe it. Is that's like, कहते हैं ना कि oh yaar, mind blowing, right? I mean this, but honestly, it was like sort of like my spirit to the core was shaken up. I think the first time that I ever heard Junoon. I'm not sure if exactly it was 1995. But it seems like for you it was. And it seems like you have a story to tell us about exactly that moment where you popped in that cassette. So,
let's do this. Let's do this. I want everybody to kind of, go over their personal experience, because Junoon is something that people have a personal connection with. So in this podcast, we're going to go over the origins of Junoon, and this is going to be a lot of fun because we have 4 people total with us today. My name is Ali Qazi. And I'm Hamad Alam. And then, once again, we have Omer Qazi and the phenomenal Zawar Jafri.
All right.
How are you guys doing?
Mr. Zawar Jafri!
I love that part. So we're going to talk about the origins of Junoon, but more specifically, your origins with Junoon, right? So let's start off with Zawar, because Zawar, how old are you, by the way? You're like in your late 20s.
Yeah. 27.
So, have you ever actually seen the full lineup in concert, Junoon's?
I did once.
Really? Where was that?
2004 at the LA Coliseum.
Coliseum, baby.
Yeah.
I remember that.
It was like a Pakistan Day thing.
Yeah.
It was advertised and hyped for months on months. And I had like this specific... You know how Geo would have like a unique advertisement where they're playing the same 5-6 songs on rotation?
Jeez, yeah.
And they're going to play that ad like 10 times in a row because they don't have anything else to put up apart from Kebab King advertisements. So at that point, there's like this register of Junoon songs that were continuously just like kind of getting imprinted in my head.
Wow.
In addition to just the stuff that all my older cousins that you guys would be playing. To kind of expose me to this entire world of music that I'm so thankful I got.
So you actually saw them at the point when they were breaking up?
Yeah. Like
when
right
they were
before
actually halfway broken up already?
Yeah.
Man, so that's crazy. But then you must have been hearing the songs before that.
Yeah, I mean, just what you knew and all those like those patriotic songs and so forth. Like I think if you're just growing up in a Pakistani family at that time period, you're going to be kind of like exposed to that stuff, and it's going to be a part of you in some shape or form.
And that's the one thing about Junoon that you have to recognize, right? Is that it's almost as if Pakistani, obviously musical culture, and I'm not discrediting any other bands or any other artists. Of course, Pakistan has a very rich musical heritage and history, but it's almost as if Pakistan and Junoon and like in terms of identity are so intertwined, you really can't have one without the other. And so even if you never grew up listening to rock music in Pakistan or don't even know Pakistani rock and what that is and think it's an oxymoron, you have to acknowledge Junoon's legacy and just what a phenomenal sort of cultural dominance and sort of presence it was.
Okay,
right?
so with that, why don't you tell us your story? Like, how did you come across Junoon? What was the impact? Is Junoon why you wanted to be an artist yourself, or?
I think a lot of it started off with bands like Junoon, with bands like Vital Signs, with bands like Avaz, of course, and Strings. But my personal connection with Junoon was the fact that I used to ask my dad a lot of questions, particularly about Pakistan, and where did we come from? Where did you grow up, and who was a part of your family? And what I recognized is that, at some point my father actually told me about someone named Nusrat Hussain.
Really?
And the fact that this guy named Nusrat Hussain was, in fact, my father's cousin. And
Are you
when
serious?
I grabbed the first,
Are you kidding me?
when I grabbed the first sort of album for Junoon, and I saw that there's this man named Nusrat Hussain. And by the way,
do you know
if you
what
remember,
you're saying, by the way?
what's that?
Nusrat Hussain is guilty of being a founding member of two of the greatest bands.
That's right.
Come Pakistan, not just Junoon, but also Vital Signs.
And you know, yeah, now that I remember, I think the story goes that my father actually, if he listened to any sort of like modern quote unquote back in like the 90s music, it was actually Vital Signs, because he actually really enjoyed, you know, at the Bottom was a favorite of his, Tere was a favorite of his, and he actually then told me that he said, you know, on that album, I think he saw the album cover for Vital Signs 1, and he was like, that's my cousin, by the way, his name is Nusrat Hussain, he's now a pilot with the PIA. So I think when I picked up Junoon's very first album, that's when I saw that, wait a minute, this guy's actually also on Junoon's very first album. And so I think that's when it's sort of like, and maybe it was like a weird sort of like connection. By the way, I've never met Nusrat Hussain in my life. Nusrat Bhai, if you're out there and listening to this,
Reach out to us.
I just want to tell you that I've been trying to reach out to you. I think you're somewhere in the Middle East. One day, inshallah, I hope we can meet. But a big shout out to you, because I know you were a founding sort of institution in a lot of these bands and movements. But I think there was this like odd connection, right? I mean, that you might have,
absolutely.
feeling that like, wow, I'm actually from this particular heritage. And in fact, that Junoon, the very first Junoon cover, in fact says, pilot realizes his dream. Because he had already become a pilot by then,
Right.
and yet he was, his true passion, I think, I don't know him personally super well, but I think his true passion was in fact music. So that was my very first real connection.
But I got a bone to pick with him about that, because, I mean, it's almost like it wasn't as bitter, but kind of like a Pete Best story, where Pete Best was the first drummer for the Beatles, and then on the eve of their huge success, they actually kicked him out. In Nusrat Hussain's case, he actually quit on both of these bands that actually became the most amazing things ever. So man, what gives, dude? It's really was the high flying job worth it? I don't know. We're gonna have to get him on here and ask him these questions.
You know, I hope we do one day, because I'd be really fascinated. And in fact, I think Nusrat Hussain, just to kind of round this out, I think when Naya Pakistan was being recorded, you can see him in one of the videos and like the sort of the behind the scenes kind of dancing around like back there while, you know, I think Junaid Jamshed was recording. I think some of us are getting emotional just thinking about this actually. But hey, I'm gonna throw it back to throw it out to Omer.
No, we're
who
gonna
actually is
throw it to
getting
Omer.
emotional as I see him.
No, obviously, like me, Umar, we had our own band here in LA called Project 26, and we were very much a Junoon-based group.
So you say that was your sort of like musical inspiration.
I mean, for the most part, it was. For me, it definitely was, but I don't know about Umar. Like, was Junoon your thing?
I mean, 100%. So, Junoon, my first, I think Ali used to play Junoon songs every now and then, and I never really, picked up on it or got into it. It never really occurred to me that this is something exceptional. Until one day, when we got the tape for Inqilab. And you just mentioned when we played this intro to Mera Mahi at the beginning of this episode, right? You said, what did this do? It exploded your tape deck, right?
Damn right.
You know what that was the Inqilab. This was the revolution in all sense. Not only, I mean, lyrically, musically, production, everything that Junoon was doing was truly a revolution, right? This album, that's just not Inqilab in name. It was Inqilab in essence.
In the sense, but because we already have one successful huge band in Vital Signs, but it was their sunset, that mid-90s period. It was their sunset, and somebody was going to fill that vacuum. And when Inqilab, the Junoon became mainstream. It was a household name in everybody's card, no matter where you were from. What kind of we talked about the gaps, the class gaps in Karachi or whatnot, but Junoon was for everybody, just like Vital Signs was for everybody.
Right. And then Junoon, so for me as a West Coast kid, heavy into hip hop and all that kind of stuff back then, and the first Junoon song that really caught my attention was Jazba Junoon. Now patriotic songs are always a hit. You always love them no matter what. But then Jazba Junoon just had this heavy bass, this drum coming in, and you're just like, this is familiar music to you. It had a little heavy bass and drum going on.
What I found also fascinating about Jazba Junoon is that the one hit that had been identified with Pakistan and sort of like national, Milli Nagme, whatever you want to call them, was Dil Dil Pakistan, and in Pakistan was in the title, right? And yet for this one, Pakistan was not in the title. It comes later on in the song, and yet you just know as soon as you start listening to the song
that was
in fact that's what it actually is. And so I think it was a very subtle little thing, but it was a sort of statement at the same
Very
time,
true.
right?
Very true.
So Inkilab. So obviously this was what, the third release, I think, the third album
It
that
was
they
the third
released,
album.
right?
Yes.
So why are we starting there? I'm really curious as to know why
I mean,
you two are
that's-
starting.
So I mean,
Inkilab.
like,
I have my opinion. I
Yeah.
think this is, if you listen to the first two Junoon albums, they're kind of following the same pattern, the same kind of everything that was already happening. It wasn't truly unique in a sense that Inkilab was. Inkilab is the album, I'm not going to say where they found their sound, but that's definitely where they started to find their sound, right? Aside from that, they were just another classic rock wannabe type band. You know, all their English tracks that they did and some of their other, you know, songs had a very heavy classic. And so did Inkilab, had a lot of classic rock influence. But it was coming to a point where, you know, we can talk about Azadi, where I think is the pinnacle of the Junoon sound. But Inkilab is where the roots of that sound were.
And you know what? One thing that I have noticed, and Adibay, I'd be curious to hear what your thoughts are, is that you could witness the maturation of two of the main artists. I think Brian O'Connell was already up there, in my opinion,
Right,
from the very start. But I think, in fact, Ali Azmat's voice, like वो कहते हैं ना कि खुल जाना है एक
Absolutely.
आवाज को, मतलब
फट जाना।
शुरू के जो दो album क्या थे, Junoon and then Talash, right?
Talash.
Those are the two first albums. And don't get me wrong, I still want to throw it back sometimes and I'll pop in those, you know, those CDs or whatever, Spotify, and listen to those albums. But Inkilab is where like uski आवाज जो है ना बस वो like where you're like, whoa, Ali Azmat has arrived, right? And then you look at Salman Ahmed and all of a sudden you see these like riffs and this like Eastern fusion that all of a sudden like, you know, sort of explodes onto you know, through the album. At least that's my perception.
And it's true
given the
because not
differences
only
between
that, the
albums.
reason Ali's voice came to that point was because Junoon's been a live band. They're a live act, right? It's a show that you go to see. So playing all these live shows for the first two albums that they were touring, and you know, his voice did open up because of that. And even so in Azadi too, it just gets, they got bigger and bigger, they performed more and more on stage, and his voice just matured like that. And so did Salman's sound.
Alright, now I'm going to tell you guys my story with Junoon.
Yeah, go for it. I know आप काफी बेताब हैं.
Oh, I am, man, and it's yeah, I mean, I do get goosebumps talking about this, and it's a long one. I'm gonna have you guys bear with me on this. It actually does go back to vital signs, because like imagine you're, you know, and we're gonna cover vital signs in our podcast, and I'm gonna probably repeat a little bit of this, but you know, we were settled in the Middle East in Riyadh. और उसमें ये था, you know, this is late 80s, and like there's really no youth culture from Pakistan. So उसमें it was so annoying that every day you go to school and everybody's talking about these Bollywood movies with Anil Kapoor, and कोई तुम्हारे मुंह पे आके गाना शुरू कर देते हैं 1 2 3 4 5 6, and then you know you're.
I did that to Ali Bhai once, and the reaction was not a good one, by the way.
So now with that going on, and then you have, you know, some American music, some European music with you. Like we have these cassettes of Michael Jackson. There's some Euro groups like, you know, Modern Talking, and even George Michael's group Wham at that time, and you know people were hearing Genesis and all these different groups, right?
हाँ ठीक है यार आप प्यासे थे उस
Well,
वक्त,
so-
ठीक है. आगे बताइए.
So like, in the best thing we had in Pakistan was like Nazia Zahib Alamgir and stuff,
Right,
but it
right,
wasn't
right.
just, you know, it wasn't oomph enough. So we get vital signs. Okay, that's great. They have Diddle Pakistan. Everybody's singing it. For me, when I heard a few of these songs, that Ye Sham Chehra, Pyar Ka Silsila, Tum Dur The, the depth and the effect, the sound effect that these songs had was so unique that it really left an impression on you. Now the issue was that, okay, this, you know, late 80s, by 1990 we had moved to the US, and we only had that one tape of Vital Signs. So usme ye tha ki, you know, we're in America, there's not that many, you know, Desi people here, and then the Desi youth that grows up here, they don't really know what goes on in Pakistan. So nobody knows about Vital Signs. But in fact, I remember we were at some community picnic, and there's some guys talking about, somebody mentioned Vital Signs. तो बंदा कहता है कि वो तो ख़त्म हो गया जी, वो तो अब वो उनके जो मूंछों वाला जो था ना, उसने एक नया ग्रुप बनाया, बहुत अच्छा ग्रुप बनाया उसने. That's all. Now, incidentally, in the meantime, I used to watch a lot of these Pakistani dramas, because, you know, they had so much substance, and they used to be like really the way they used to cover social issues and whatnot. So Salman Ahmed का एक ड्रामा था आहट, ठीक है? It was about family planning and stuff. Now I watched it, I did not know who that person was, that lead character was. I would find out until way later, right?
You didn't know who Salman Ahmed was at that time.
I know that he was the Muchewala from Vital Signs who had left Vital Signs.
ठीक है.
So during this time, like early 90s, from 91 on to like almost 95-ish, we're listening to Awaz. So, making Desi friends who've been, had migrated recently or were coming and going from Pakistan and have these tapes and we're listening to like freaking, Fakhri Alam to Music Channel, Charles Bands, everything. I still did not hear any Junoon until I met this guy in 96, early 96 when I was in junior college. So I met this person, his name was Irfan Shaukat. He was a foreign student. The biggest Junooni I've ever known. I mean, this guy was crazy. You know what he would do? Whenever we'd hang out, go to like shops where they were selling Junoon tapes and whatnot, he would buy extra copies of tapes just to give it away to people. So he used to be an evangelist for Junoon. It was, and then this guy, we became really close friends, and he actually played with me and Omer in our band, and he actually wrote a couple of great songs as well. So he showed me the first two tapes, the Talash and the first album, and Inqilab actually hadn't come out at that time, so he probably didn't come out till 96. So usme, what happened? I hear this, the first album, and wow, this is that dark sound from the first Vital Signs album that I was wishing that they would still continue with, and it's been missing in my life for all this time, and it's back, and it's that Mucho Wala guy from Vital Signs. That was, that blows my mind. I'm listening to this, I'm listening to the crap out of it, and then Talash ki par jo cover dekha, and these guys were looking as badass as ever on the Talash album. Right. And then this guy goes, the singer is from Jupiter's. I mean, Jupiter is that one, for lack of a better word, can I call them Bindu? No, they were probably okay. Yeah, you know what? I've seen Jupiter's.
I disavow.
I've seen Jupiter's live, believe it or not. I saw that in either 90 or 91
in Saudi.
Here in El Camino College Marcio Auditorium. There was this big show with like Bushra Ansari, and it was those typical variety shows. जो पाकिस्तान में होते हैं, that's when they brought in Jupiters. Now I don't know like if Ali Azmat was there or not, but I know there was a young skinny looking guy. It could be Irfan Kiani, which
they
I
had several
also,
different singers at one point.
They did have different singers. So Ali Azmat may have left Jupiters by then because obviously Junoon was forming. So scene ye hua ke I got a hold of Junoon and I'm listening to the crap out of it. I love it. And फिर उसी दौरान फिर like shortly after that Inqilab album drops. Wow. Life just cannot get any better. So then first time I saw them live is before the release of Azadi. Okay, they had released Kashmakash, and
which was what? Which was like a compilation.
It was a compilation album, but it came
of...
after a very significant time because this is when Salman Ahmed started leading political rallies for Imran Khan.
Right.
So the song Meri Awaaz Suno and Ehtisab were part of that album.
They included Ehtisab very purposefully on that album as well. Yep.
So with that release of that album, they were doing a tour of the U.S. Mm-hmm. Now this is really interesting. When they came to LA, Desi shows ka culture hi alag hota tha. I mean, I would love to talk about it, but it was very different. Nobody actually cared about the artist.
Acha.
Guys would just go there. Well, guys would just go there to pick up girls and bump their, put their cars out.
I was hoping we could just get away with shukal karne aate the, but no, Adibhai had to be more specific. Go ahead, it's okay.
I mean, they'll park their cars outside, bump sound, and show off their racing cars and whatnot. And that was the whole culture of Desi shows. Nobody cared to listen to Ali Haider or Junaid Jamshed Sajjad Ali, whoever was coming. Mm-hmm. Junoon started to change that, but
आप वो वाहिद अल्लाह के बंदे थे जो वाकई उनको सुनने के लिए आए थे.
Well, this is what I saw. The first Junoon concert. I mean, the hothead Junoonis were obviously, out of our mind that, okay, Junoon's coming, we're going to go see them.
Right.
The first concert in 97, Anaheim High School Auditorium.
It was always in a high school auditorium, by the way.
It was always
I just remember Jordan High School.
Jordan High School.
Do you remember that high school?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's where I saw Vital Signs, by the way. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, same.
Anaheim High School Auditorium. And high school auditoriums have a capacity of what? 2,000, 3,000?
Not even.
Not even that? That was the capacity, and all the seats were empty except maybe 150 people showed up. 150, 200 people showed up. It was a bust, right? But hardcore Junoonis were there, and show started with Salman Ahmed playing the riff for Dosti. Curtains opening, and all I see is hair. Because Ali Azmat is just freaking, he's just swinging his hair all over the place, right? And Salman is swinging his hair and playing that riff, and curtains opening, and every single soul that was there just went freaking nuts.
Yeah.
I mean, that 150 crowd was heavier than a 10,000 people crowd. And Junoon did not care.
क्योंकि वो जुनून था, वो जज्बा था.
Typically, what would happen is, artists, Pakistani artists were becoming divas. So if somebody, who was a big name would come and say, "Oh, आप लोगों ने ticket नहीं बेचे, marketing नहीं हुई जी, हम तो जा रहे हैं वापस." They would cancel on the spot and leave.
Yeah.
Junoon played as if they were playing in front of 10,000 people.
Yeah.
They played like they were the greatest band in the world. There was something magical about it. They knew what they were about. They knew they were for real.
Yeah.
And we knew, whatever handful of us were there, we knew it was real.
Yeah.
Salman Ahmed goes, there was plenty of space in front of the stage. He goes, क्या आप सारे यहाँ आ जाए सामने. अच्छा, एक और चीज मजे की होती थी कि balcony seats होती थी सस्ते टिकट वालों के लिए ना. तो उसमें बेचारे कोई वो 5-6 लोग ऊपर बैठे होते हैं.
उन्होंने $10 के टिकट लिए होते थे.
Yeah. Salman looks up, he goes, आप सारे यहाँ आ जाए.
बस आ जाए बस आप.
And then he actually told the organizers, hey, let them come down here.
Yeah.
And they came down there. The whole auditorium was empty except for the 150 of us.
In the mosh pit.
In the mosh pit. And we were rocking this place like it was the most amazing thing ever. और जो typical जो concert goers थे ना, जो लड़कियों के लिए आते थे, they were so irrelevant. They were walking around bored and they were like, man, what is this? I want people to come out, look at my car, listen to my sounds bumping in my car, but these guys don't care. And we're there.
So finally, the outcasts were the ones who actually were the center of it all.
Right.
And all the popular kids were just like hanging around, like, what the hell just hit us?
Shortly after that, Azadi was released, and it became big in India. And then they came to the big bad House of Blues.
Man, iconic venue. House of Blues Hollywood, not just House of Blues Houston or Anaheim and Disney, whatever they've opened up.
We're talking about Los Angeles on Sunset Boulevard.
Sunset Boulevard, House of Blues, man. It does not get more iconic than that.
So recently, I just want to share a little bit of inside, background info. Is that Ali Bhai, in fact, sent us a picture of this ticket stub that he still has saved.
How much was it?
I think it was what, $30?
It was $20.
$20.
$20. And what year was it? 1995?
99. Probably early 99.
Okay.
Maybe.
Which was like very close to Parvaz's release.
Yeah, it was after 97 for sure, but it was close to Parvaz's release because they played like Sawan and some other Parvaz songs.
They did, yeah.
In that.
And by then they had already gone platinum, right?
They were big.
That's why they were
so
huge.
it was a multicultural event. They had some Indian lady singing. She got booed off the stage.
Oh, dude,
poor lady was singing
ruthless.
her heart out, and Junoonis are just packed in the club and just like boo, boo. I mean, we were included in that.
Yeah, we were there. We were
like,
going
get off the stage, bring Junoon. And finally, man, Junoon came on.
वैसे उस किस्म की गुस्ताखी जो है ना वाकई वो बेअदबी है, but I can excuse it for that particular
And
moment.
if you want to be part of this, listen to Mera Mahi on the Junoon live album.
Yes.
It's from that venue.
Really?
Yeah.
So tell them how it started.
So it starts, this guy comes on, he's Nigerian, and he goes, live from Karachi, Sufi rock, Junoon. And the same thing as before, curtains open up and Mera Mahi starts playing. Malcolm Govius is there. And he's just on banging on the drums.
Oh my
Dude,
God.
larger than life. I swear to God, I've never experienced anything like this in my life. Looking up at the stage, Ali Azmat, Salman Ahmed, Brian, Malcolm in the back. Larger than life in an iconic venue. I mean, that was everything. I've never been to a show like this in my life.
Wow.
Never have and never since.
Wow.
I mean,
it was just
when you
amazing.
talk about the greatest bands in the world, like what is so great about that? It's because you play in front of a crowd and 100% of every single soul that's there is screaming to your songs.
Yeah.
If that's not a great band in the world, then I don't know what is.
And also, I mean, so what I want to really sort of focus in on as well is that, so first of all, when you sent that ticket stub, my eyes sort of popped out, right? Because I was like, wait, House of Blues in 1999?
So you did not know they played there?
So I had no idea. So by the way, that's when I moved back to Pakistan for a couple of years. And I have my own stories of watching Junoon live. I think the first time that I saw Junoon live was in Karachi. I dare say
Karachi.
It was in Karachi. I dare say that it was actually at Dream World. So anybody who's actually listening in Karachi probably knows about this place. It's a very elitist sort of venue, elitist sort of place.
You said that's your first concert?
That was my first ever concert. That was in 2000. But what I really want to say, and the fact that you mentioned, like, there's a certain aesthetic that Junoon brought, right? When I saw, so my story with the first ever cassette that I ever got for Junoon, it was a little bit later. I want to say it was like 1996 or 1997, when my khala had just come back, I think a couple of khalas had just come back from shopping, and literally one of them surprised me. I had no idea this was happening. I was like 12, 13 years old at the time, just bored out of my mind sitting in Karachi, and she dropped a bunch of cassettes in front of me. Now the majority of the cassettes, okay, nothing against these particular artists, but the majority of these cassettes were Jawad Ahmed, and they were Ali Ahdar, and I didn't mind that, right? I didn't mind that because I was ready to be exposed to any particular Pakistani music that there was. But that one album that stuck out to me the most, and I think honestly, think about it. I was only 12 years old, right? And what popped out at me?
That cover itself.
That cover itself, right? The cover of Kashmakash itself, and as a Pakistani American kid, who by that time had already been exposed to bands like Green Day, Gin Blossoms, Nirvana, right? And knew about this rock alternative aesthetic. And all of a sudden, you see Ali Azmat's face, square in the middle. And he has I think he has long hair in that picture.
Yep.
And I was just stunned. I was blown away. And to me, as someone who was a diaspora Pakistani American child growing up at that time, I was like, I want to curse right now. Holy crap. What is this? And that immediately caught my eye. And that's when I popped it in. I was like, this is, and that was frankly the only album that I listened to that entire summer out of the 7 cassettes that my khala brought to me, right? So to me, in 2000 when I saw Junoon live, and I had already known about them, obviously I listened to all their albums by then, that had been released, but Awaz obviously came out in 1999 when I actually moved there. And मैं बता सकता हूँ कि बच्चा गली में जब भी हम क्रिकेट खेलने आते थे ना, तो बॉल के in between जब बॉल हो रही थी ना जब क्रिकेट मैच में, तो literally someone would be singing Bulle ke jana.
Imagine that, man. That's...
literally, that was literally what was the sort of atmosphere at that time, right? And so when I saw Junoon for that first time, I think quite honestly, and I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but growing up Pakistani, and by that time, naam bhi thoda sa kharab ho raha tha, international stage pe, you just they enthused this they had this sense of confidence, right, about them. And growing up as a young Pakistani who was still searching for who the hell am I, that was it was a God-given honestly duaein qabul ho gayi thi unke zariye, right? And I'm not saying that everybody's going to have this experience. I'm not saying that this experience applies to everyone, but the reality is that the reason why I am so proud of the heritage that I have, among so many other things, and that dates back to Muslim Hindustan, right? Yeah. But at the same time, the modern sort of sense of identity that I have as a Pakistani, Junoon was instrumental in. And
I'm gonna agree with you 100% on that, because somebody who was on the cusp of losing his identity, getting lost in the culture here, which is very easy to do.
Absolutely.
And Junoon just brought it all flooding back in, man. Like you said, they brought culture back to us. And a lot of us grew up like that. Yeah. And I must say, we were mentioning all these album names from Junoon. I gotta love the way that Junoon named their albums, and it was very purposeful the way they went about it, right?
They're successful, it was succession.
It's in succession, and I remember after Inqilab was a great album. I became a fan at that point, but at Azadi, I became a super fan. I was active on the forums and this and that, and Junoon used to interact with the fans. I think Salman Ahmed's brother was running the forums and stuff, and so first came I think Talash, you're looking for your identity. Junoon is the first one. Yeah. First you have this passion.
Junoon, we're here, we've arrived.
You have something, but what do you do with it? Then you gotta identify it, you gotta talash your identity, you need to find it. After that comes the revolution. Yeah. What comes after revolution? Kashmakash. Yeah. Little instability, right? Yeah. And then after that is Azadi.
Yeah.
What's better than Azadi?
Yeah.
That's where I was stuck. And they were asking us on the forums, guess the name of the next album, and everybody's got their guesses. And what could it be? And Salman was like, after a few weeks, he's like, Parvaz. Right. After Azadi, fly, man.
Exactly.
That's it. You've ascended.
जब आजादी पा लेते हैं तो फिर क्या होता है? बस उड़ते ही जाना है बस.
Exactly. So I love the naming convention of the albums. That was very nice and very purposeful.
So you guys are, one thing you guys hit on the spot is the identity stuff. Being in part of the diaspora, and not having the connection. Not only that, but there's something to be proud of. I've taken the stuff to my Gore friends, and they're like, damn. And Gore friends have known about Junoon from other Pakistani friends. They come tell me about it. That's happened.
And by the way, not that we have anything to prove, right?
No, but for our own self-confidence, that we have this thing and it's amazing. And you know what kills me right now, and I want to talk about this is really the purpose of doing this podcast, is because this podcast is probably the best way that I can celebrate Junoon and Vital Signs. What I would love to see, what I would die to see is, you look at the way movies are made on all these, American bands. Bohemian Rhapsody just came out recently. And then there's tons of other ones on all kinds of artists. Yesterday, this movie that came out. We don't have anything that we can show people that is of quality for Junoon or Vital Signs are. And
except for their dramas that they did, the both bands.
I mean, if I had a budget of $10 million, I would go pick out, hire all kinds of Bollywood actors and make a movie on Junoon. I actually have it picturized in my mind. I would start the movie off with Rohil Hayat and Shahzad Hassan are going on a motorcycle from Pindi to Islamabad. They're going to go check out this singer that they heard about. His name is Junaid Jamshed, who meets this guy from King Edward's Medical College named Salman Ahmed.
Yeah.
Became faster friends. Junaid takes Salman to meet Rohil and Shahi. Boom. Fast forward, there's this guy Ali Azmat who's part of Jupiter's who doesn't like it. He comes, visits their studio sessions and whatnot. And, then Salman Ahmed picks a fight with these guys. I want to do my own thing. He goes, hey, Ali Azmat, you're freaking amazing. Let's try this thing out. They try it out, and you got these two bullet trains, Ali Azmat, Salman Ahmed, they start heading out in the same direction. Boom, they bring in Brian O'Connell to mediate and contain that energy. And we have the most amazing thing ever.
Can we talk about that real quick? Because I do think that that's a very important aspect to touch on. Maybe we can continue the conversation in another episode. But part of Salman Ahmed's childhood was actually spent in New York, right? And so we have to recognize the fact that he did have heavier... I think all of these sort of Pakistani rock artists in the 80s and 90s had these Western influences. But I think in particular, Salman Ahmed had a very heavy... And I think everybody knows, Bacha Bacha Janta Hai, Led Zeppelin was such a big influence on him in terms of his own artistic style.
He saw Zeppelin at Madison Square Garden.
Right. But him and Brian O'Connell had a friendship, right, growing up. And Brian O'Connell, he's one of the most iconic bassists that you will ever come across, right? And I think this is a subtle thing that I think most, I dare say, casual listeners of Junoon may not sort of realize, but go back over the albums and try to listen again and listen to the bass licks and listen to like how much depth that brings, because you only had three. Yeah. You had three members and that's it. You just had three members. You had Ali Azmat, whose versatility and vitality in terms of it, like his vocal range is so incredible, and that's what brings a lot of depth. But Salman Ahmed, yeah, great. He's a fantastic guitarist, but who was the third member? And that was
you guys mentioned Salman Ahmed kind of got his inspiration to pick up the guitar or become a musician because he saw Zeppelin live. Imagine what Salman Ahmed himself has done, including us in this room. Mm-hmm. All of us saw Salman Ahmed and his likes, and we were inspired to pick up the guitar and become musicians ourselves, right?
Absolutely.
So he's kind of paying it forward. So I hope he realizes that the man is a
I do want to say I met him a couple of times. I think some of us, a lot of us have met him a couple of times. He's a very humble individual, honestly. He comes out to schools to perform and wants to sit down and talk about Pakistan. Obviously has taken up political causes, and that's a credit to the man.
That's the thing about Junoon is when we start to unpack, like right now in this cast, we're running about 34 minutes right now. We haven't gone this far in any podcast. So we're gonna continue this in different parts. So let's wind up this one right now, and till next time.
Real quick, I want to ask, इनकलाब में सबसे top गाना आपका कौन सा है? बताइए.
Oh god damn! Why
you're asking the wrong question?
I don't know.
Why?
There's चले थे रूह की प्यास. Oh, where do you go with this?
So many emotions. Iltija. Koi Aanke, Husn Walo. Come on, man! You don't ask these questions.
I'll tell you this much at least.
Unfair.
If before they come here and we see them again, if they asked me what is your request, I would say do the mashup of Talash and Mekonu. Yeah. That is classic.
So can I just say my top song? If I had to pick one, obviously there are so many amazing songs from the album, but it really comes down to, for me, Husn Walo, just because of the fact that I did in many ways kind of grow up as an outcast, and not just because of my race and religion, but so many different ways of just being a nerd and a dork and whatever. And so Hame Zinda Rehne Do and Husn Walo. That's the message that I want to end with here.
Thank you, Mr. Zawar Jafri, for his live soundtrack.
Mr. Zawar
It's been amazing.
Jafri! Yes. Credit to Mr. Zawar Jafri for adding in his own licks. And we'll see you next time when we continue our conversation about Junoon. Khuda Hafiz.
Khuda Hafiz.